As we've discussed before, there are many characters throughout Onimusha that honestly feel like wasted potential with how little total screen time they end up getting. We've already expanded previously on how the likes of Kaijiro Maeda could have impacted the overall narrative had he actually stuck around following his pledge to aid Samanosuke and Kaede in Blade Warriors. But out of every character in the series, there is one that is perhaps more forgotten than any other character. That character is the cousin of Samanosuke, Princess Yuki. After being saved from Fortinbras, she and Yumemaru would escape Nobunaga's attack on the Inabayama castle in 1567, and the two would travel the world together over the next 6 years, following in Samanosuke's footsteps. By the events of Blade Warriors, Yumemaru returns to Japan under the name Kaijiro Maeda, and for a short time aids the Oni in the fight against the Genma. However, not only does Yuki not return with him, but any mention of her flat out ceases, almost as if even the likes of Samanosuke and Kaijiro have forgotten that she even existed. Given that the only surviving relatives of her are Yumemaru and Samanosuke, the latter being her only remaining blood relative, it's very strange that she didn't return alongside Kaijiro, either to stay close to her brother or to see her cousin again after 13 years. So how would things have changed if Yuki actually did return? If she decided to re-establish contact with Samanosuke, what impact would she have on events going forward? Following his meeting with Kaede and pledge to fight alongside her and Samanosuke as recompense for their deeds 13 years prior, Kaijiro spends his time fighting off the Genma alongside her, Eke, Kotaro and Oyu, while Samanosuke and Jubei fight and defeat Nobunaga. With this victory, they all go their separate ways once again. However, Kaijiro sticks with Samanosuke and Kaede, fully intent on keeping his promise to aid them from now on. Soon after the battle, he asks them to return with him to Maeda territory, wanting the two to meet someone. Curious, the two agree and travel with him to Owari province. Upon arrival, Kaijiro takes the two to a nearby shrine and gets the attention of a shrine maiden in the midst of prayer. Hearing his voice, she is quick to jolt to her feet, clearly happy to see him, only to freeze upon seeing Samanosuke and Kaede. The two are rather confused at her reaction, but she is ecstatic to see them again, and Kaijiro introduces her as Kiko, a shrine maiden that began working with the Maeda clan. As she rushes over to greet Samanosuke and Kaede, she reveals herself, much to their shock, that she is in fact Yuki, though had chosen to forsake that name after the destruction of the Saito clan. After travelling the world for 6 years, she decided to return alongside Kaijiro in the hopes of seeing them again, certain that Samanosuke survived the collapse of the demon world. Kiko suddenly begins visibly shuddering at recounting those events, still harbouring some lingering trauma, but asserts that while she was never a fighter, she decided to become a Miko to find another way to help them. Kaijiro is quick to tell them that Kiko has become a highly respected shrine maiden over the past few years, and while Samanosuke and Kaede are a little concerned about getting her involved in the fight, she remains adamant to help them, sharing Kaijiro's desire to repay the Oni for saving them. Their insistence eventually causes the Oni to relent and accept her aid, especially when Samanosuke begins to sense an almost holy power emanating from her, realizing that she may be more than she appears. Kiko enthusiastically promises to find a way to use her skills to actively help them in battle, while Kaijiro continues to fight with Samanosuke and Kaede against the Genma. Given her years of experience, it doesn't take long to find a way to channel her power into something more tangible. After some trial and error, Kiko successfully creates purification charms designed to purge all forms of evil, making them extremely dangerous to Genma, soon giving a supply to the group. Not long after, the three are caught in battle with Garganto, and while Samanosuke is locked against the Genma warrior, Hideyoshi prepares to fire on the Oni, but with both Kaede and Kaijiro present, he is forced to back away before taking the shot, as they are able to reach him fast enough to stop the attack, forcing him to flee. With Hideyoshi out of the way, Kaijiro is quick to rush Garganto and interrupt their fight, his raw strength catching the Genma off guard. While Garganto is still beyond Kaijiro, he is impressed that a human could be this powerful. However, as he attempts to retaliate, Kaijiro throws one of Kiko's charms at him, the charm exploding as he catches it and dealing significant damage, leaving him weakened. In the end, with all three of them able to focus on him, Garganto is left with no choice but to retreat, allowing Kaede to survive the battle. Following this, they are soon contacted by the Oni, who grant Kaede and Kaijiro their own gauntlets, with Kaijiro receiving a wind-based Guandao Hurricane, while Kaede already possesses the sacred knife. What the Oni also notice are the contributions of Kiko, acknowledging and approving her creation of purification charms, deciding to keep an eye on her from now on. Over time, Kiko continues to create more charms to ensure that they have a steady supply should they be needed, though also begins working on applying her magic in other ways. Eventually, the Maeda clan publicly pledges its allegiance to Nobunaga, causing both Kaijiro and Kiko to become disillusioned and begin working alongside the Akechi clan, if only because they learn from Samanosuke of Mitsuhide's plan of rebellion against the Warlord. While Kiko isn't very concerned about being affiliated with the clan, Kaijiro agrees to aid his rebellion only on the condition that he not be considered officially affiliated. Since his aid against Nobunaga is what matters, Mitsuhide agrees to his terms, especially considering that Kaijiro's new strength as an Oni had built him a highly feared reputation among the Genma, matching and in some cases surpassing their fear of Samanosuke. In 1582, all three manage to infiltrate the Genma tank, and with their teamwork, stealth becomes completely unnecessary, with their perfect combination of speed, strength, and adaptability being far too much for the Genma to contend with. The three are able to fight their way into the control room as opposed to sneaking through the roof, encountering and defeating the two Genma guards before Garganto emerges from his pod. Seeing that he is not only outnumbered 3-1, but that both Kaede and Kaijiro are now only warriors, he begins to think that he may be a little out of his depth, and decides to challenge Kaijiro to a one-on-one, also gaining interest in him due to both his feared reputation as well as his previous display before becoming an Oni. Kaijiro agrees, giving the others a knowing look before approaching the Genma and beginning their battle. While Garganto still proves to be an extremely dangerous opponent, he doesn't dominate Kaijiro quite as much as he does Samanosuke in canon, thanks in no small part to Kaijiro's raw strength, allowing him to tank the majority of Garganto's hits. As the fight progresses, however, Samanosuke and Kaede are able to sneak by the side of the room and reach Garganto's pod and prepare to cut the tube, Garganto only noticing as they reach it. As he tries to stop them, Kaijiro takes advantage of this distraction and lands a powerful blow to stun Garganto, before pulling out another charm and forcing it into Garganto's face, detonating it. While this alone isn't enough to be fatal given Garganto's own strength, the purification magic heavily damages the warrior, leaving him much too weak to escape the Genma tank's explosion while the Oni use their wind magic to make it out. After the tank explodes, the Oni regain consciousness and take the time to search the rubble, and they soon find Garganto crushed underneath, his arm being the only thing sticking out as he tries to keep a grip on his sword. After a moment, his grip relaxes as he shrivels away, most of his body having already exploded with the tank itself. With this, the Oni join Mitsuhide outside Honno-ji, and he presents them all with new outfits, though Kaijiro respectfully declines, preferring to stick with the outfit he has. Mitsuhide doesn't question him since his aid is what's important here, and the assault on Honno-ji begins, the Oni blitzing through the Genma to reach Nobunaga and Ranmaru in record time. While Ranmaru wants to fight alongside Nobunaga due to them being outnumbered, he is angered into challenging Kaijiro after the latter expresses disappointment at someone so young so willing to serve a monster like Nobunaga. As Kaijiro's warnings to the young retainer go unheeded, he is forced to face and dominate Ranmaru in battle, having become too skilled for Ranmaru to be able to use his speed to counter Kaijiro's power. Following Ranmaru's defeat, Nobunaga prepares to fight them himself, though by now remains aware of their usage of Kiko's purification charms. While he does think himself above the Oni despite their numbers, their teamwork proves difficult to overcome, even with his unnatural speed as he tries to outmaneuver them. As Samanosuke tries to defend against Nobunaga's attacks, Kaede takes the chance to throw one of her charms at him, but the Warlord is able to notice and zip out of the way, laughing as the charm makes contact with Samanosuke instead. His laughter stops, however, as he realises that the charm is completely ineffective, realising that they must have been tailored for Genma specifically. But as he prepares for another attack, a timefold appears and takes both the Oni and Ranmaru's body to the future. While there are going to be a couple of key changes, the majority of Demon Siege will be very similar to our previous what if concerning Kaijiro. While their Oni magic is drained as a result, they are relieved to see that Kiko's charms seem to retain their power, glad that they haven't lost all of their resources. The three are able to rescue Jacques and Philippe from the Zorm, but after being unable to get past the language barrier, they are forced to watch as another timefold takes the two to the past. As Kaede finds the phone on the ground, they notice Kaijiro growing visibly angry as he looks up, the others following his gaze to see Guildenstern atop the Ark, before taking the time to calm him down as they prepare to move forward. Upon reaching the Ark and opening the brazier, Samanosuke is the one to gain ownership of Tenso before they encounter Michelle and her men. After their continuous failed attempts at communicating, Michelle decides not to send what men she has with those charging into the Ark, not confident that she will be able to hold all three Oni on her own. She and her men soon rush into the Ark anyway to save those being slaughtered by the Zagat, and her men are also quick to fall against them, though the Oni are able to intervene before they can knock Michelle unconscious. Grateful that they saved her life, Kaijiro is able to mime to her to stay behind, and she gives them the key to the upper floor. She soon begins preparing her fallen comrades, while the Oni scale the Ark and confront Guildenstern, who, while recognizing both Samanosuke and Kaede, is not familiar with Kaijiro despite the latter's visible anger at the sight of the scientist. Regardless, he summons Brainstem and flees, leaving the Oni to make short work of it and ponder their next move. In the past, once Jacques parts ways with his fallen friend and becomes an Oni, he and Akko encounter Samanosuke fighting off some zombie warriors, with Kaede dropping from the nearby roof after killing an archer. While Jacques initially accuses them of bringing him here, Akko is able to mediate and they form an alliance once all is explained, soon reaching the Enja monument to meet with Kaijiro, who also gets a quick rundown. They all split up to search for the bronze mirror, and Kaijiro sticks with Jacques as they search the mountainside, Kaijiro attracting the Genma while Jacques crosses the gaps to find the mirror. Once they bring it back to the monument and gain Enja, they meet up with Kaede back down the mountain, find the key, and reconvene with Samanosuke as they open the way to Enryaku Temple. Inside, they are confronted by Ranmaru, who, while noticing the presence of Jacques, attempts to incite discourse by accusing Kaijiro of betraying Nobunaga due to the Maeda clan's allegiance. Kaijiro is unfazed, however, asserting that he stopped caring for his clan the moment they sided with such a monster, again expressing disappointment at seeing someone as young as Ranmaru throwing his lot in with the Warlord. Angered, Ranmaru summons Marcellus and warns the Oni that Mitsuhide's rebellion will fail, Samanosuke and Kaede chasing him as he leaves. Leaving Mori to them, Jacques and Kaijiro are left to handle Marcellus, with Kaijiro doing the majority of the heavy lifting, while a more inexperienced Jacques takes a bit of time to find his rhythm. Regardless, it isn't too long before Marcellus is left defeated, and Jacques takes the chance to rest while Akko warps to the future to find Henri. As she leaves, Kaijiro goes into more detail about his disillusion from his clan, refusing to bow to the Genma and feeling a more personal loyalty to Samanosuke and Kaede. Given that he has a bit of a surplus now, he gives Jacques a few purification charms, telling that his sister made them as another weapon to purge all forms of evil. Jacques decides to keep them on hand just in case, not wanting to squander any kind of advantage. In the future, the Oni return to Michelle as she has finished paying her respects to her fallen men, and as they once again fail to communicate, Akko arrives and greets them, realising that they are different versions and giving them the rundown, including the appearance of Jacques in their time, something that catches Michelle's attention, glad that he's still alive, but also realising that the language barrier has been broken by Akko's presence. She soon gets a call to assist her men in the sewers, and the Oni agree to help her. Once again, this section goes the same, though pushing the ball is done a bit faster due to Kaijiro's strength. Once they exit the sewers, Jacques' phone rings and Kaede gives it to Michelle, soon taking the group to Henri. Once all is explained and the Oni notice Henri's antagonism towards Michelle, Akko returns to the future to find Jacques and Kaijiro, the two deciding to meet with Samanosuke and Kaede to discuss their next move. They soon hear the beeping in the crates, and Samanosuke, returning with Kaede, tells that the crates likely came from Sakai, also confirming that thanks to Kaede's speed, they were able to catch up to and kill Ranmaru. Glad that he can't hinder them anymore, they all decide to head for Sakai to question the Torea merchant. Once the group splits up, this section remains mostly the same, at least until Jacques presents the time-lab journal to the party and witnesses Kaijiro's rage upon hearing Guildenstern's name, trying to help calm him down. Upon finding the western ship, Heihachi arrives and decides to challenge Kaijiro instead of Samanosuke, hearing of his recent reputation among the Genma and also wanting to have a battle somewhat resembling spear versus spear. Once the ship begins moving, however, the rest of the Oni join the fight to speed it up, and he is forced to withdraw, leaving Jacques to get his key from Henri and use his bike to reach the ship alone, waiting on board while it begins descending to the undersea temple. Heihachi soon returns to the rest of the Oni, and they are all forced to work together to protect the town from the Genma, with Kaede staying with Samanosuke to protect the drawbridge while Kaijiro sticks with Heihachi. In the future, Guildenstern calls Jacques' phone and invites the Oni to see his new creation in Notre Dame's basement, and the Oni soon arrive and awaken the air orb, allowing Kaede to obtain the air shuriken Kaze. They soon reach Guildenstern in the basement and learn his plan, soon fighting off the Dordo while he flees through his teleporter. Preparing to chase him, Samanosuke and Kaijiro ask Kaede to return to Michelle and Henri to ensure that they are safe in case the Genma try anything, and the two follow Guildenstern to the undersea temple while Kaede rushes back. Having also arrived at the temple, Akko meets with Jacques, and both groups work together to open the chambers, leading to Samanosuke and Kaijiro soon finding Guildenstern once again, only to be faced with a Genma converted Ranmaru. While Guildenstern flees, Ranmaru, who was particularly jaded towards Kaijiro for his previous defeat, prepares to fight the two. Obviously, the Oni are too much for him, though Kaijiro does at one point fling one of Kiko's charms at him, heavily damaging Ranmaru as he laments that his body is still fighting off his Genma blood. Hearing this, Kaijiro rushes forward before the convert can escape and pins him to the ground, shouting for Samanosuke to get another charm ready. Samanosuke is quick to react and readies another charm, holding it into the struggling Ranmaru's chest as Kaijiro keeps him from fighting back as he screams in agony. After a mix of bright light and dark essence erupt from Ranmaru's body, the charm dissipates and Ranmaru stops struggling, gasping for air as the Oni realise that his Genma blood has been purged, rendering him human once again. Catching his breath, Ranmaru frantically begins checking his own body, his own purification dawning on him as he furiously demands to know what the Oni have just done. Kaijiro, while glad that they were successful, still expresses a level of surprise that his plan actually worked, telling Ranmaru that he has been purified of the Genma's influence. Now at a complete loss for words, Ranmaru struggles to process what just happened, and Kaijiro tells him that he now has a second chance, asking him not to waste it as he might not be as lucky next time. Angered at Kaijiro's sanctimony, Ranmaru flees from the Oni, Samanosuke praising Kaijiro's quick thinking, but also expressing concern at Ranmaru simply running back to Guildenstern, something Kaijiro hopes is not the case. While the Oni continue to explore the undersea temple, Samanosuke's concerns prove true as Ranmaru flees back to Guildenstern in the hopes of regaining his Genma power, though before he manages to reach the scientists, finds himself thinking a bit more deeply about becoming a Genma once more. He hadn't noticed it before, but he suddenly finds that he is thinking far more clearly now, almost like there was an angry red haze in his mind while he was a Genma. Regardless, upon reaching Guildenstern, the scientist is both shocked and annoyed at the restoration of Ranmaru's humanity, and while learning of the Oni's ability to purify him, decides that he must have simply been so weak that not even the power of the Genma can make him worth the effort. Now seeing Ranmaru as a complete failure, he demands the retainer not to get in the way while he puts the finishing touches on his plan. Ranmaru not answering back, considering he is incapable of actually contesting the scientist as he is now. A little taken aback by Guildenstern's antagonism, Ranmaru decides to leave him to his work in order to find a way to become stronger on his own, deciding to search through Guildenstern's old notes to see if he can find anything. In the temple, things go as normal for the most part, though when Heihachi and Kaijiro reach Jacques after finding the Iron Stone, Kaijiro decides to stay and help Jacques from now on, leaving Heihachi to return to Sakai and complete the repairs for the drawbridge, notifying Samanosuke and Kaede of this decision. Having no direction themselves while Jacques and Kaijiro search the temple, Samanosuke and Kaede decide to pay a visit to Kiko in the meantime, hoping that she has managed to find another way to utilise her magic against the Genma. For the most part, the rest of the temple goes as normal, though Kaijiro is the one to gain the Earth Orb in the future, obtaining the Oni battle axe Miburui. After Jacques and Kaijiro defeat Gertrude and escape on the Genma train, the future group check the northern room as well, though since Ranmaru is no longer a Genma and is too busy going through Guildenstern's notes, the Oni do not fall prey to any ambush this time. They notice a break in the wall where the past group had managed to escape through, but find the station devoid of any Genma train since it never returned after the past group had taken it. With nothing left to do, they decide to return to Kaede and the others to discuss their next move. Akko warps ahead to let them know, and Kaede decides to meet them outside Notre Dame, Michelle also tagging along since Henri refuses to be left behind, Akko offering a compromise that he stay close to them. While annoyed at this term, he begrudgingly agrees, and the three meet Samanosuke and Kaijiro and get a rundown on what was found within the Oni temple. With no leads, Kaede suggests rechecking the basement in order to look through Guildenstern's notes for clues, and the party agree that it's their best and likely only move right now. Upon reaching the basement once more, they find a small room off to the side filled with what looks like bookcases, but as they check inside, they find Ranmaru already reading through some notes, surprised and visibly nervous at the presence of the Oni. The group are a bit on edge, but Ranmaru doesn't even try to fight them, knowing full well that he wouldn't stand a chance against them, mentioning with a clear hint of frustration that Guildenstern said he wasn't worth the time it would take to reconvert him back into a Genma. Knowing that he cannot return to the past without the aid of Guildenstern, he decided to read through the scientist's notes to try and learn more about his plans and possible paths to greater power. While concerned that Ranmaru is still trying to become a Genma again, they can't help but notice a particularly disgruntled look on his face as he turns back to the notes in his hand, hesitating before grabbing another note from the shelf and throwing it towards them. The Oni are a little confused, but Ranmaru admits to knowing that he cannot stop them and tells them that they will find answers at Boulogne Zoo, the Oni reading the note to find that Guildenstern had created another lab there. Hoping that this could be a turning point for the young retainer, Kaijiro asks him to come with them, but Mori turns away, saying that no matter what, he can never betray his lord. Disappointed at his answer, the group agree to go there without him, leaving Ranmaru to grab another of Guildenstern's old journals, seemingly reading them in the reverse order with an increasing level of resentment. The Oni soon arrive at Boulogne Zoo and begin exploring, soon finding the keys to both the research centre and the boat, using it to reach the former. As they begin checking the cells in the basement, Guildenstern appears and quickly grabs both Michelle and Henri, disappearing with them in the hopes of converting them into Genma. With the key already in hand, the Oni are quick to reach and confront the scientist, and he is forced to fight them himself. Naturally, in a 3-on-1 battle, the Oni are able to make rather quick work of Guildenstern, so much so that he doesn't even get the chance to create a time fold in desperation, falling before he is able to do so. In the end, he still remains confident that his now completed time folder will secure the Genma their final victory, and has one last laugh before succumbing to his wounds. Upon freeing Michelle and Henri, the group discover Mont Saint-Michel as their next destination, but as they're about to leave, they turn to find Ranmaru entering the room, unsurprised that Guildenstern was defeated. The Oni ask him what he wants this time, but Mori hesitates for a moment, before mentioning that Nobunaga was once human like them, asking the Oni what he was like before he became the Genma Lord. Surprised at the question, Samanosuke begins to tell him of the man Nobunaga used to be, recounting his mastery of conquest while also mentioning his now lost honour, extending that standard to his men. It was only following his ascension as the Genma Lord that he truly became the monster he is today, abandoning his humanity for the power of the Genma. Ranmaru begins to ponder this, wondering just how different Nobunaga really is now as a Genma, and Kaede asks him if the time folder really is in Mont Saint-Michel, to which Ranmaru tentatively confirms, knowing that they will likely go there regardless of what he says. Now needing to think things over more than ever, he decides to leave, and the Oni soon head to Michel's car and make their way to Mont Saint-Michel. It's a bit of a tight fit considering Kaijiro's size, but with him in the front seat, the others are able to fit in the back for the journey. Once they arrive, Michel and Henri agree to wait in the car, while the Oni search for the time folder. Once again, even with the extra allies present in both eras, this section plays out the same, with the future group discovering the prototype time folder and realising that if Guildenstern truly finished his creation, then this is most likely not the folder that they're looking for. Meanwhile, Ranmaru continues reading all the notes, these ones now going as far back as 1560, as Guildenstern describes the many humans that once traded their service for the Genma's power. The further back he reads, the more angered he slowly becomes, seeing Guildenstern's initial apathetic opinions on Nobunaga, while also learning that Nobunaga hadn't even started as Genma Lord, but a willing slave, only ascending through a mixture of luck and dire circumstance. Eventually, Ranmaru decides that he has learnt enough and rushes back to the zoo's research centre, intent on proving Guildenstern wrong and accomplishing something without the Genma's power, taking with him some far more recent research logs. Once Henri is able to free Jacques and Kaijiro from the gas trap, the future group prepare to leave the monastery, only to be called from behind them as Ranmaru had managed to seemingly follow them from the basement. Confused as they are, they ask him once again what he wants, and Ranmaru admits that he wasn't entirely truthful about the time folder, telling them that while there is a time folder here, it isn't the finished version. The functional time folder is actually at the top of the Eiffel Tower in order to harness the infinite power of the sky. Before the Oni can ask him why he's telling them this, he finally opens up and expresses his newfound belief that the Genma have corrupted Nobunaga beyond all recognition, asking them if they could purify him the same way they did for Ranmaru. While wanting to see the honourable man he used to be, the Oni admit that such an action may not be possible, since Ranmaru was only a convert that had yet to fully acclimatise to his Genma blood, while Nobunaga has been so filled with Genma power that it makes up too much of his entire being now. Disheartened that purification isn't an option, he begins to reject the decision to ally with the Genma, revealing Guildenstern's original thoughts of Nobunaga before becoming the Genma Lord, simply seeing him as an inconsequential animal. Given that the scientist only began respecting Nobunaga once he became a Genma, he starts believing that he only respected Nobunaga for his Genma power, not for his skills or accomplishments. He still expresses a want for Nobunaga to survive, but concedes that the Genma must be stopped, regretfully accepting the need to kill the Warlord if he is beyond reason. The Oni are shocked but grateful at this surprise alliance, and prepare to head to the Eiffel Tower, at least until Michel reminds them that she won't be able to fit everyone in her car. Ranmaru, however, tells them that will not be necessary, telling of another teleporter located in the basement of Mont Saint-Michel, the same teleporter he just used to get here, leading them past the gas trap to show them. He tells them that since Guildenstern had created multiple bases of operations throughout Paris, he had these transporters installed in each one for easy travel between each, similar to the device that linked Notre Dame to the Undersea Temple. This includes the Eiffel Tower as well, Ranmaru able to set the device up for instant transport there when they're ready, also saying that while the time folder is complete, Guildenstern didn't actually have the chance to turn it on before the Oni defeated him. With such a perfect chance to stop the Genma so readily in their hands, Samanosuke immediately encourages its destruction, though they decide to first escort Michel and Henri back to their car. As they do, Genma begin to appear around them, and Samanosuke and Kaijiro tell Kaede and Ranmaru to get the other two out while they hold the Genma off. Upon escaping the castle, Gertrude awakens and prepares to charge them, Ranmaru actually being the first to notice and warning the others. As Michelle tries to shield Henri, Kaede uses the air magic of her Kaze Shuriken to momentarily stun the beast, stopping its charge before it can actually hit anyone this time, giving Ranmaru the chance to herd the other two out of the way as Samanosuke and Kaijiro arrive to back Kaede up. Again, with this being yet another 3v1 situation, the fight is heavily tipped in the Oni's favour here, with Kaede's speed making it difficult for Gertrude to keep up, and Kaijiro's raw strength being enough to repeatedly stun it in place, on top of Samanosuke's adaptability to whatever else is needed, Gertrude is defeated rather quickly. With the threat past, the Oni are quick to check on the others, and Ranmaru lightly chuckles as he admits to seeing why they kept winning every battle, acknowledging that even as a Genma, he would have never stood a chance against them. The Oni thank him for saving Michelle and Henri, but he says that he simply did what was necessary in the moment, encouraging the two to escape while they have the chance. Michelle promises to meet them at the Eiffel Tower as she drives away with Henri. Before they return to the monastery to use the transport device, Ranmaru says that there is one last thing that must be done first, reminding them of the unfinished time folder that still exists here. Kaijiro asks what he suggests, and Ranmaru says that they need to destroy the device within the monastery, the resulting explosion likely taking the entire castle with it, telling them that he waited until now to mention it in order to give Michelle and Henri enough time to get out of range when it explodes. The group agree and rush back towards the monastery, holding off the Genma while Ranmaru is able to begin overloading it similar to Ganon. Once the device begins to explode, they each rush towards the basement and use the transport device, Ranmaru going last to ensure that it takes them where they need to go. The Oni tell Akko to head back to Jacques in the meantime, and with seconds to spare, all four of them are able to teleport out as Mont Saint-Michel explodes, Michelle and Henri seeing the blast from a distance as they drive away. They arrive at the top of the Eiffel Tower, finding the functional time folder whirring in front of them, and Ranmaru tells them that all that was left was for Guildenstern to simply turn it on, showing them the handle. Both Samanosuke and Kaijiro are quick to take a few slashes at the device, but their attacks cause no damage, Ranmaru remarking that Guildenstern ensured that its destruction would never be that easy. As they try to figure out a way to destroy it, the sound of their attacks attracts a nearby Brainstern as it suddenly flies up from below and prepares to protect the folder. Knowing that he isn't able to fight it as a human, Ranmaru hangs back as the Oni make quick work of the mechanical Genma, admitting his lack of surprise that the device is being guarded. Now able to take the time to look around, Kaede looks down from the edge and notices random time folds appearing and disappearing around the tower, the others also seeing them as they check for themselves. Ranmaru mentions that it took Guildenstern a long time to find the perfect spot for the folder, mentioning that it required two pulses to function accurately, the pulse of time and the pulse of the earth. Without a spot where both were stable, it would only result in random and uncontrolled time folds, citing the one that brought the Oni here as an example. As Ranmaru says this, Kaede takes notice of the flesh-like cables extending out from the device and noticing the light flowing up through them, thinking that they are supplying the folder with power and suggests cutting them. Ranmaru, not versed enough in Guildenstern's science to be able to deactivate the folder himself, agrees that it's probably their best option, and they all begin cutting the cables, Ranmaru included. As they finish cutting the cables near them, the folder begins to flicker and stutter around them, seemingly losing power with every lost connection. With this, they begin working down the tower and cutting every cable that they find, further causing the folder to lose functionality while also dealing with the Genma along the way, continuing to do so as night begins to fall. Meanwhile, Akko arrives back to Jacques and Kaijiro, relieved that they both survived, and tells them of the future Ranmaru's defection, surprising the two that an alliance with him could even be possible. Trusting their future counterpart's judgment, they prepare to continue their own mission and reach the basement, Jacques using both ends of Reizan to grab both Kaijiro and the castle as it rises up, the both of them taking the time to rest within the structure after escaping Vega's destruction of Mont Saint-Michel. Once the Hayumbade reaches Lake Biwa and drops him out of the sky, Kaijiro is able to use Hariken's magic to soften the fall for them both, telling Akko to notify Samanosuke and Kaede while they try to find shelter from the cold. Samanosuke and Kaede soon arrive alongside Heihachi to meet the two, though Kaijiro is particularly shocked to find that they had also brought Kiko along with them. Introductions are made between herself and Jacques, Kiko surprised to meet a Western Oni, and Heihachi takes the time to apologise for his previous hostilities and asks to join them against the Genma, a request that the Oni accept. Kaijiro is quick to ask why Kiko is here, and Kiko expresses a want to do more for them than simply making charms, though Kaijiro worries about the dangers of direct involvement. However, she promises that she has been able to do more than just prepare different charms from the group, and assures that she's able to take a more active role now after a recent breakthrough in her magic. Kaijiro remains very clearly concerned, but Samanosuke and Kaede promise that she will be fine, mentioning that she had actually managed to help in defeating some Genma that they encountered on the way here. Jacques and Kaijiro are surprised at this knowledge, but trust their judgment, admitting that even if that were not the case, there's more than enough people here to keep her safe if necessary. The group soon decide to search for the Oni army orb, and send Heihachi to Azuchi Castle in order to have someone on the inside, leaving the rest to begin their search of Lake Biwa, Kiko making sure to stay close to them at all times. As they are sailing across the lake on a block of ice, they are accosted by a large group of Bartha, the Oni preparing to fight them off. However, as they surround the group, Kiko suddenly performs a purifying incantation, creating a large circle of holy magic around them, immediately incinerating any Bartha that fly too close. Jacques and Kaijiro are baffled at this new ability, and Kiko reaffirms her promise to be able to actively contribute, telling them that she has been studying many different ways to apply her purification magic. This display significantly raises the Oni's morale and confidence, and they soon reach the Oni Mansion with little effort, both Kiko and Kaijiro being trapped inside with Jacques while the others look for another entrance. They soon navigate the mansion's traps and reach the basement where they are confronted by a pair of Don Gachas, but Kiko once again performs an incantation as they prepare to fight. While it isn't quite enough to outright kill them, her holy power is enough to sap them of their strength, causing their movements to become a lot more sluggish, barely able to swing their flails anymore as the Oni make quick work of them. With this, they reach and obtain the Oni army orb as Samanosuke and Kaede arrive, and they all agree to begin their assault on Azuchi Castle. Upon arriving, Kaede is the one chosen to use the Oni army orb, since the others are far more suited for the front lines of a large-scale battle. But as the Oni army spawn and begin their charge, Kiko decides to stay with Kaede and pulls out a blue charm as opposed to her regular orange ones, and holds it to Kaede's gauntlet. While everyone else are initially confused, Akko suddenly calls their attention to the army, having noticed that they are each being engulfed by a blue aura. Suddenly, their speed increases as they charge the Genma, and what initially appeared to be a fairly even battle is quickly tipped in the Oni's favour, Kiko revealing that this new charm was created to enhance the magic power of whatever it's used on, in this case being the gauntlet that released and controls the Oni army. With the army now already punching a hole in the Genma's defences, Jacques, Samanosuke and Kaede rush ahead to join the fight, and the battle quickly turns into a one-sided massacre, with the Genma being completely decimated by the time they reach the castle gates. This lets them reach Heihachi before he is able to fight off the Genma surrounding him, and once they dispatch them together, Kaede and Kiko soon arrive since the Genma are all but wiped out already. Heihachi comments on their speed at defeating the Genma army, and the Oni tell of Kiko's magic that managed to strengthen their own, allowing them to blitz through in record time. Heihachi can't help but praise Kiko's skill, highly impressed at her versatility and having built a very clear respect for her abilities, Kiko bowing in thanks. With past Ranmaru already dead, Heihachi sticks with the Oni as they climb the tower, and the team of 6 face off against Marcellus on the roof. While Kiko does once again attempt to use her magic to weaken the Genma, he is too strong for her to keep him weakened for long, though even a short time is enough for the rest of the party to take advantage and cut Marcellus down. They are quick to reach Vega, and while she is visibly worried at a 6v1 battle, she's not only angered at the presence of Heihachi, but utterly insulted that Kiko is here to fight her, not even knowing who she thinks she is. As Vega further expresses her ire at Kiko's presence, laughing that she thinks a petty shrine maiden can defeat her, Kiko suddenly throws one of her charms at her, Vega catching it as she smugly asks what a piece of paper will do. Kiko can only smile in response as the charm explodes in her hand, heavily damaging the Genma Queen, now furious as she attacks the group. Now, I'm sure I don't need to explain just how out of her depth Vega is here. With a party of 6 standing against her, Vega is almost instantly dogpiled, and while she does attempt to immediately spawn a doppelganger to try and tip the odds, Kiko uses her magic to immediately dispel it, knowing that Vega herself is too strong to weaken directly. Within minutes, Vega is left broken on the ground, dying as a ladder drops from the ceiling. Samanosuke can't help but note that Kiko has grown a lot more confident in recent times, and she says the Inabayama incident motivated her to grow as a person, mentioning that her confidence grew as she began to see success during her training as a shrine maiden, not to mention developing a similar hatred of the Genma to Kaijiro. Heihachi can't help but joke that he clearly has more to learn in order to compare to the rest of the group, and they all share a chuckle before checking the loft. The group climb up to find a number of unsent letters spread across the ground, all of them penned by Vega to Nobunaga. As they search through them, they eventually learn that the intended address is Honno-ji Temple, Jacques remembering the Oni god mentioning that when he first arrived here. The group agree that it's time to meet with Mitsuhide to begin their rebellion against Nobunaga, Heihachi and Kiko also agreeing to join them, and Akko is sent to the future to report the events to them. In the future, Michelle and Henri arrive at the Eiffel Tower, looking up to notice the time folder flickering heavily and barely maintaining any power anymore. As they approach the tower, the folder stops flickering and powers down entirely, and the Oni alongside Ranmaru soon emerge from the bottom, having finally finished cutting every cable they can find, reporting as such to Michelle and Henri. Akko arrives as they meet and tells them that Jacques and the others are making their final assault on Honno-ji Temple, also mentioning that both Heihachi and Kiko are joining the fight. The future Oni are concerned at the idea of Kiko becoming directly involved, but Akko assures that she has already managed to fight off Genma by herself, telling of her more refined purification magic. As they hear this, all 4 of them begin to glow as the folds of time begin to reassert themselves, and the group say their farewells to Michelle and Henri as they are taken back to the past. They arrive outside Honno-ji just as the past group meet with Mitsuhide, but as they join everyone else, their presence creates a great deal of confusion among everyone involved, especially Mitsuhide. Remember, no one in either era has been killed up to this point, so we are now left with 2 versions of Samanosuke, Kaede and Kaijiro in the same place thanks to their early return to the past. Mitsuhide is completely lost for words at seeing 2 of the same people, but past Kaijiro simply says that it's a story to tell everyone later, at least once Nobunaga has been defeated. He does, however, express a level of distrust to the newly arrived Ranmaru, aware of his defection from the Genma, but having no personal experience with him, something that Ranmaru does acknowledge and understand. Kiko is quicker to trust him due to hearing of his aid of the future group, and she is able to trust their judgment of him. On the flip side, the future Oni express a small amount of concern about Heihachi given his association with one of Nobunaga's closest allies, but Heihachi, while also a bit baffled at these future doubles, personally assures that he fully intends to see Nobunaga die with the Genma. In the end, everyone is able to put their concerns aside to make a united stand against Nobunaga, Mitsuhide following suit when he realises that this situation means that his potential Oni aid may have almost doubled. Elated that so many are backing his rebellion, he confidently launches the attack, and the assault on Honno-ji begins. Again, do I really need to say just how easy this attack is? With 7 Oni, Kiko's magic, and Heihachi and Ranmaru's skill, the push to the temple could not be more effortless, as the Genma are rendered completely ineffective. The group of 10 reach the temple, and while Nobunaga is initially stoic like usual, he freezes in place when he realises just how many are ready to stand against him, actually feeling a hint of fear with the presence of so many Oni warriors. He is rather annoyed at Heihachi's presence, deciding to punish Ieyasu Tokugawa for Heihachi's betrayal, but his anger reaches a breaking point when his eyes lock squarely at his own retainer, furious that Ranmaru would betray him so easily. Ranmaru is quick to deny this, instead telling him that while he remains loyal to Nobunaga, this loyalty remains only with the honourable man he used to be before the Genma turned him into the monster that stands today. he begs his lord to forsake the Genma and become the worthy ruler he was before they intervened, but Nobunaga silences him, concluding that Ranmaru had allowed his human weakness to become dominant and deciding that he is now a lost cause. He proclaims that the power of the Genma has made him the only being worthy to dominate the world, and asserts that there would be no place for human weakness in his kingdom. He calls Ranmaru an ungrateful wretch for forsaking his place at the Warlord's side, and Ranmaru, with a heavy heart, finally accepts that Nobunaga has truly gone off the deep end, apologising as he draws his sword and tells him that death is the only option now. Nobunaga then turns his attention to Kiko, but he barely even acknowledges her, wondering why someone so weak would dare to even have the courage to face him directly. A little insulted by this, Kiko throws a charm at the ground in front of him and detonates it, though the Warlord is unaffected by the blast. As the smoke clears, however, she creates another circle of holy magic as she attempts to drain his strength, but Nobunaga again is unaffected, proving far too powerful for her magic. Nobunaga can only laugh at her attempts, calling her magic pathetic as well as herself, but while a little strained from her attempts to break through his strength, she looks him dead in the eye and refuses to become a victim once again. As she says this, a slight feeling of familiarity washes over Nobunaga, and as he stares back at her, he begins to laugh even harder, realising just who it is that's facing him. He admits that he had never expected her to return after her near sacrifice decades prior, finally identifying her as Yuki, though she is quick to tell him that that isn't who she is anymore. Tired of the talk, he tells her that her sacrifice will be completed this time, promising to finally take her head as he shoots a fireball directly at her. Both Kaijiros are able to block the shot, now equally angered at this attack, and as the rest of the group prepare to fight, Nobunaga is able to see that he can't afford to hold back against odds this high, transforming immediately into his empowered Genma form. This is enough for them to realise that Heihachi, Ranmaru and Kiko are way out of their depth here, and tell the three to flee as they all transform into their Oni forms in the hopes of combating the Genma Lord. While this normally would not be enough to threaten the full strength of Genma Nobunaga, the fact that there are 7 of them is enough to actually put up a genuine fight, all playing to each other's strengths to keep Nobunaga on his toes at all times. In the end, however, Nobunaga's raw power is still a bit too much for them and they are slowly pushed back, realising that this boost in strength is still not enough to win the fight. It's at this point, however, that future Kaijiro suddenly gets an idea, suggesting that 3 of them could possibly absorb the Oni power from their double in order to close the power gap with Nobunaga. Past Samanosuke warns that doing so may cause the other to lose their Oni power entirely, but as Oda continues to push them back, Past Kaede says that there isn't another option, offering her gauntlet to her future self. The rest of the past group decide to follow suit, and as Nobunaga knocks an Oni Jacques away, he turns his head to notice 3 blinding purple lights, as a trio of true Onimushas emerge as the future Oni absorb their past selves' gauntlets. Having been left with no Oni power as a result, Oni Jacques decides to focus on keeping the past group covered while the future Onimushas do battle with Nobunaga, the tables almost instantly turning against him. While an Onimusha Samanosuke would be tough enough, the blinding speed of Onimusha Kaede and the now utterly monstrous raw strength of Onimusha Kaijiro leaves Nobunaga completely outmatched, and he is soon defeated. As Nobunaga reverts back to his human form, the Onimushas quickly turn towards their depowered doubles, transferring their inherited Oni power back to them. As a result, the past group regain the power they had briefly lost, while the future group lose their Onimusha forms, reverting back to humans as they all turn and prepare to finish off Nobunaga. With them holding the anti-darkness charm, the future group all decide to absorb Nobunaga's spirit at the same time, sealing him in 3 separate pieces within their gauntlets to make it even harder for him to be resurrected. Everyone present agrees that this is the best decision, since he wouldn't be able to fully return without becoming whole again, and they all escape the temple before it collapses. They find Ranmaru, Kiko and Heihachi waiting for them, relieved to see them survive considering Nobunaga's Genma strength. When they learn what happened, Kiko and Heihachi congratulate their victory, while Ranmaru expresses a level of sorrow, sad that it had to be done, but accepting that there wasn't another choice. As they take in their victory, Jacques begins to glow as the folds of time attempt to return him to the future, and the Oni thank him for his aid as they say their goodbyes. Jacques returns to the future and reunites with his family, able to return home with them without losing his Oni power since there's no one left to kill Henri this time. With the assault on Honno-ji a complete success, the party flee with Mitsuhide and his clan. With two versions of the Oni present, the future group decide to change their identities, becoming Tenkai, Otsune and Matsukaze respectively, while the past group maintain their old identities to more easily differentiate themselves. Heihachi decides to return to Ieyasu, bidding farewell to his new allies and vowing never to reveal the future group's true identities. Kiko remains with the group over the next few days, and the Oni soon appear before her, commending her efforts against the Genma and granting her their power as a reward. While she doesn't get an Oni weapon like the others, her already significant purification magic becomes even more powerful due to the addition of her new Oni power, and she spends the next few days working to apply her Oni magic to her charms and incantations, increasing their potency. As for Ranmaru, he is left uncertain what to do with himself following the defeat of Nobunaga, still feeling a significant regret not only for his loss, but for the role he himself played in the Warlords' downfall. However, they all soon hear of the return of Hideyoshi Hashiba from his western campaign, learning that he has plans to march against Mitsuhide in Yamazaki in order to avenge Nobunaga's death. While Ranmaru believes that Hideyoshi had always carried Nobunaga's will, he also feels that he was always far too complicit with the Genma's involvement to not be a risk. Kaijiro shares this mistrust of Hideyoshi, still remembering his actions 22 years prior, but while the Oni are unsure whether to get involved, Kiko actively begs them to do so, sure that Hideyoshi could very well cause the Genma to resurface one day. This is enough for all 6 Oni to agree to join Mitsuhide in the Battle of Yamazaki, as well as Ranmaru, with the Oni having been given charms to temporarily strengthen their Oni magic just to be certain that Hideyoshi is defeated. Their involvement tips the battle in Mitsuhide's favour, and Hideyoshi's forces are actually defeated this time, with Samanosuke and Tenkai successfully killing the would-be despot, wishing that they had done so at Inabayama. This defeat would send ripples throughout Japan, and once word of both Nobunaga and Hideyoshi's death reaches the likes of Ieyasu Tokugawa, he realises that this is the perfect time to begin his own clan's conquest of the country. However, this does not spell the end of the country's conflicts over right of conquest just yet. Having also heard of the defeats of Nobunaga and Hideyoshi, Mitsunari Ishida, having initially served with Hideyoshi since 1577, actually decides to build his own forces for conquest as well. With yet another ally of the Oda clan attempting to take over, Mitsuhide actively pledges loyalty to the Tokugawa clan in the hopes of wiping away the Oda clan forever. And while his reputation as a rebel gives Ieyasu pause, he decides that someone capable of overcoming Hideyoshi in direct combat would be a valuable asset to have. This decision is further swayed by Heihachi, who promises that Mitsuhide would be a good ally to the clan, Ieyasu having learned of Heihachi's own role in destroying Nobunaga, but choosing not to punish him since it allowed this chance for the Tokugawa clan to begin their own campaign. Ranmaru, having stuck with Mitsuhide during this time, decides to participate in this conflict, knowing that while he hasn't had many interactions with Mitsunari himself, he is aware of his ambition and worries that he will attempt to revive the Genma for his own ends. Kiko shares this concern and again convinces the Oni to get involved, and the Battle of Sekigahara begins a year later. What's more is that Ieyasu ends up gaining yet another unlikely ally in this battle, this ally being the Shibata clan. Since Hideyoshi had died before the Battle of Shizukatake, he would not have the chance to kill Katsui Shibata, and with his very recent marriage to Oichi, he heeds her concerns about anyone who had allied with Hideyoshi, having always harboured a deep hatred for the man. With Heihachi, Ranmaru, the Oni and the Shibata clan fighting on the side of Ieyasu, as well as Mitsunari's forces not having the numbers that he had hoped for due to the devastation at Yamazaki, Mitsunari is soon defeated and executed by Ieyasu, effectively killing the Oda clan's last remaining hopes of survival. As expected, this would inevitably lead to the beginning of the Tokugawa Shogunate now that all of the other major players are dead, receiving the support of the Shibata, Maeda, and Akechi clans. Ranmaru, having stuck with the Akechi clan since the assault on Honno-ji, decides to pledge his service to Ieyasu, joining Heihachi in the Tokugawa clan and leading to the two developing a close friendship over time. The two would soon aid in the training of Ogimaru as the young Oni would grow up. While the Akechi clan ally with the Tokugawa clan, the Oni themselves remain fairly independent, and with the death of both Hideyoshi and Mitsunari, there is no one left to unlock the Genma seal and release the Triumvirate, causing the events of Dawn of Dreams to never occur. With the Genma threat now past, Tenkai, Otsune and Matsukaze finally work to seal their gauntlets, with Tenkai's being sealed within the Enja Monument at Mount Hiei, Otsune's being stored in the Oni Mansion, and Matsukaze's being stored at the Maeda clan's residence. As this is happening, Ako is soon assigned to watch over the Oni Gate at Mount Hiei, becoming human-sized and changing her name to Arin as she bases herself there for the foreseeable future. Kiko actually decides to join her, having developed a more personal loyalty to the Oni than the Maeda clan and aiding in the protection of the Oni Gate, the two also becoming very close friends over time. Their combined magic allows them to erect Oni barriers far more easily, and they decide to do so for Mount Hiei, the Oni Mansion, and the Maeda residence to further protect the sealed gauntlets from the Genma should they ever return. They soon learn of Ieyasu's own disdain for the Genma, so they decide to meet him at the Jurakudai Palace and offer to erect yet another Oni barrier to repel the Genma for the foreseeable future. While Ieyasu doesn't quite believe in their claims of an Oni barrier, Kiko's reputation as a respected shrine maiden had grown considerably over recent years, something that he came to highly respect. Also appreciating their anti-Genma sentiment, he allows them to create an Oni barrier around the palace, and the two return to Enryaku once it's finished. Tenkai, Otsune and Matsukaze end up joining Arin and Kiko at Enryaku, deciding to call the mountain home. Since Tenkai already has Otsune, Arin ends up falling for Matsu, leaning towards him over the past Kaijiro since Matsu spends a lot more time at Mount Hiei, though Samanosuke, Kaede and Kaijiro do still visit from time to time. As for those three, the past group decide to retire to the Yagyu village, Samanosuke and Kaede meeting with Jubei and being accepted within the village alongside Kaijiro. With their residence there, they begin aiding in the training of the next generation of Yagyus. When the other Oni learn of this decision, Kiko and Arin arrive to erect one final Oni barrier around the village, hoping that it will help protect it from an attack similar to 1573. Jubei is also made aware of the events leading to the Oni doubles, and while it does highly confuse him, he can't really see a reason to complain about there being two versions of people that he already trusts. With there being multiple teachers for the Yagyu, the accident that would have cost Munenori his eye never actually occurs, with his teachers being rotated every session. The variety of teachers that Munenori learns from causes him to adapt faster to different situations, and he is able to protect himself from what would have been the attack that would change him. As a result, not only does his mother survive, but Munenori does not grow up resentful towards the Yagyu, and he is soon named the strongest of his generation, earning the name Jubei. During this time, Samanosuke and Kaede would settle down together and have a child of their own, a son that they name Yukimaru, named after the previous identities of Kiko and Kaijiro. The two are highly appreciative and flattered by this sentiment, and Kaijiro finds contentment in acting as an uncle to the boy, with Kiko often making visits of her own to act as his aunt. Tenkai and Otsune end up also having a son at around the same time, and while they initially plan to use the same name, they decide it best to pick something else once they learn that it's already been taken. In the end, their son is given the name Mitsumori, named after Mitsuhide and the now redeemed Ranmaru Mori. Ranmaru himself soon learns of this and is greatly honoured, now having become a staunch Oni defender and now on far more friendly terms with them over the years. Upon Munenori's inheritance of the Jubei name, he begins aiding in the training of his niece, Akane, and Yukimaru would soon join the Yagyus in their training. He would soon begin training alongside Akane, and while the two would slowly build up a bit of a competition between them, they would inevitably become fast friends as they grow up. The future group would also pay a few visits to the village over time, and the young Mitsumori would also be brought along, inevitably meeting Yukimaru in the process. The two would be equally surprised when they realise that they share an uncanny resemblance, looking like they could very well be twin brothers. And though Mitsumori holds a far more reserved disposition due to his more solitary upbringing at Mount Hiei, the two would get along rather well. Tenkai and Otsune would eventually have Mitsumori join in the Yagyu training, and as he grows up alongside Akane and Yukimaru, the three would become an extremely powerful team, with their families unable to ignore the parallels to themselves during their own fight against the Genma. With the Genma effectively rendered extinct, the survival of so many Oni and 3 potential Oni prodigies growing within the Yagyu village, the future of the Oni and humanity is left brighter than it has ever been for over 2,000 years. And that is where our story ends. I'm sorry, but I cannot express how much I loved how that ended. Not only giving everyone the chance to have a really nice ending, but also beginning a potential team-up of Akane, Yukimaru and Mitsumori really felt like a changing of the guard kind of situation. Giving Yuki a support role really felt like it fit her character too, though I thought that having her evolve her magic to eventually gain a more active role was just the right amount of development for her. Given that purification magic isn't necessarily exclusive to the Oni, I decided it was the best route for her, while also wanting to evolve and expand on that concept by slowly enhancing those abilities and giving her more ways to use them, which is where her new blue charms came into play. Since support doesn't always mean directly damaging her enemies, creating something that acted as more of a buff for her allies felt like the most logical next step. What I wanted to make sure to figure out was not only her abilities, but also her limits. I found that introducing new powers to a story is surprisingly tough to do in a natural and consistent way, since you want it to have its own specific role, but you don't want it to just become a new overpowered tool in the character's arsenal. This is why I had her holy magic be capable of insta-killing weaker Genma like the Bartha, while weakening stronger Genma like the Gacha, though the effect would produce diminishing results when it comes to even stronger Genma like Marcellus and Vega, leading to the likes of Nobunaga being too strong to feel any effects whatsoever. Obviously, once she gains Oni power, her magic potential increases enough to make creating Oni barriers a lot easier, especially with Arin helping her out. I was admittedly worried about how similar this was going to be to my previous scenario that focused purely on Kaijiro, which is one reason I had Kiko create and distribute charms to them, leading to the purification of Ranmaru. This is something I really wanted to expand on as well, since I don't think we've ever even entertained the idea of him turning on the Genma. In truth, it felt really hard to justify his purification actually working, since they didn't really do much of that in canon. But considering that they did break Ophelia's mask on Sakon, I decided to use the excuse that Ranmaru's body was still fighting his Genma blood, so he wasn't so consumed by it yet to render the process ineffective. In the end, however, I suppose it's really just all about the suspension of disbelief. Either way, I just wanted to try something new, so I hope that not only his purification, but also his character progression felt believable enough. Having him search through Guildenstern's old notes only to discover that the Genma only ever truly respected Nobunaga for his Genma power rather than his innate talents and accomplishments would likely be the only reason he would turn on them, if only to further try and defend Nobunaga. Finally, we should address the elephant in the room, that being the fact that there are now 2 separate versions of Samanosuke, Kaede, and Kaijiro. Admittedly, with how this scenario was going when I was writing it, it wasn't until I had reached this point in my notes that I had effectively written myself into a bit of a corner. In the end, I felt like I had to go with one of 3 possibilities: have the future group get sent back to the past with everyone else, have them get sent back to the original timeline, effectively having two separate timelines occurring at once as they fight Nobunaga, or leave them trapped in the future since there was already a living version of each of them in the past. In the end, I decided to go with option 1 since I'd then be able to have one group change their identities like Tenkai does, while the other retain their original names. Honestly, I was worried I wouldn't be able to make it work, but I feel like it was the best I could do considering the situation. Regardless, this was still a really fun scenario to write, and many thanks to Anma Narrative for suggesting it. It was great to finally give Yuki the chance to be her own character, instead of just being relegated to merely the damsel-in-distress stereotype, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Thanks for watching everyone, and take care of yourselves. Danish, out.